If the entire history of the universe were compressed into a single year, humanity would appear only in the final seconds before midnight on December 31st. Everything we are, our thoughts, our fears, our civilizations, our dreams, exists in a blink of cosmic time. And yet, here we are. We build cities that scrape the sky. We write stories, create art, ask questions about our own existence. We look up at the stars and wonder where we came from. But the story of humanity does not begin with cities, or language, or even with tools. It begins long before the first human ever walked the earth. It begins with time itself, a universe prepared for life. Nearly 13.8 billion years ago, the universe was born in an event we now call the Big Bang. From an unimaginably hot and dense state, space itself began to expand. Energy cooled into matter. Matter formed atoms. Atoms formed stars. Inside the hearts of those stars, heavier elements were forged: carbon, oxygen, iron, the raw ingredients of planets and life. When those stars died, they scattered these elements across the cosmos. Billions of years later, around a young yellow star, a small rocky planet formed, Earth. At first, Earth was hostile, volcanic, violent, bombarded by asteroids. The surface boiled. The skies burned. And yet, somehow, against all odds, life began. The first life on Earth. Around 3.8 billion years ago, the first simple life appeared in Earth's oceans. No eyes, no brains, no bones, just microscopic organisms, single cells, floating in ancient seas. They lived, reproduced, and changed, generation after generation. Through a process we now call natural selection, traits that helped organisms survive became more common over time. This simple mechanism, variation, inheritance, survival, would shape every living thing that followed. For billions of years, life remained small and simple. But evolution never stops. From simple cells to complex life. Eventually, some cells began to work together. Multicellular life emerged. Cells specialized, some for movement, some for digestion, some for sensing the environment. Life diversified. Plants colonized the land. Insects followed. Fish ventured onto shore and became amphibians. Amphibians gave rise to reptiles. And from small, shrew-like mammals hiding in the shadows of dinosaurs, something new began to take shape. Something that would one day ask questions about its own past. The age of mammals. 66 million years ago, an asteroid struck Earth. The dinosaurs, dominant for over 160 million years, vanished. And in the silence that followed, mammals rose. They diversified into countless forms. Some returned to the sea. Some took to the air. Others adapted to life in the trees. Among these tree-dwellers were the early primates. The first primates. Primates evolved traits perfectly suited for life among the branches. Forward-facing eyes for depth perception. Flexible shoulders for swinging. Grasping hands with opposable thumbs. Their brains grew larger relative to body size, allowing for complex social behavior. They lived in groups. They learned from one another. They remembered. These early primates were not human, not even close, but they carried the foundations of what we would one day become. A changing world. Around 10 to 7 million years ago, Earth's climate began to change. Forests shrank. Grasslands expanded. For some primates, life in the trees became harder. Food was scattered. Predators were everywhere. And so, a small population faced a choice, not a conscious one, but an evolutionary one. Adapt or disappear. Standing upright. Some primates began spending more time on the ground. Walking on two legs, bipedalism offered advantages. Hands were freed to carry food. Eyes rose higher to spot predators. Walking became more energy efficient over long distances. This was a turning point. These creatures were no longer just primates. They were hominins, the lineage that would eventually lead to humans. The first hominins. The earliest known hominins lived around 7 million years ago. They had small brains similar to chimpanzees. They still climbed trees. They were far from human, but their skeletons reveal something revolutionary. They walked upright. This single adaptation would reshape everything. Australopithecus. Between ape and human. By about 4 million years ago, a new group of hominins appeared. Australopithecus. They walked upright but still climbed trees. They had small brains but human-like teeth. They lived in groups and likely cared for their young. One of them, a female we now call Lucy, walked the earth over 3 million years ago. She was not our direct ancestor, but she represents a critical stage in the journey. A creature caught between two worlds. Evolution has no plan. Evolution is not a straight line. It has no goal, no destination. Many hominin species appeared and vanished. Some adapted. Some failed. Some left no descendants. Human evolution is not a ladder. It is a branching tree, and one branch, just one, would lead to us, a promise of what's to come. By standing upright, our ancestors changed how they moved, how they saw the world, and how they interacted with it. But walking on two legs was only the beginning. Soon, hands would shape stone into tools. Fire would be tamed. Minds would grow larger. Stories would be told. The path to humanity was long, uncertain, and often brutal, but it was underway. Next, we will meet the first toolmakers and watch intelligence itself begin to awaken. The hand that changed everything. For millions of years, our ancestors walked upright, observing the world with curious eyes. But it would take more than two legs to change the course of evolution. It would take hands. Hands capable of shaping, grasping, and creating. Hands that would craft the first tools. And with tools, everything changed. Homo habilis, the handyman. Around 2.4 million years ago, a new species emerged, Homo habilis, the handyman. Slightly taller than Australopithecus, with longer arms and smaller teeth. Homo habilis possessed a brain nearly twice as large as its predecessors. Not enough to write poetry or plan cities, but enough to understand cause and effect. This species represents the first real step toward human intelligence, a turning point in the evolutionary story. The first tools. Homo habilis did something remarkable. They picked up stones and shaped them into tools. Sharp edges for cutting, points for scraping. Crude but effective instruments that allowed them to access food that had been previously impossible to reach. With stone tools, meat could be cut from bones, tubers could be dug from the earth, and survival became more flexible. The world began to bend to their will ever so slightly, but the spark of innovation had been lit. The impact of tools. Tools were more than survival, they were a bridge between mind and environment. With each stone shaped, with each animal butchered, Homo habilis was learning. Learning not just to survive, but to plan, to observe, to experiment. These small acts of innovation set the stage for all future human technology, from fire and shelters to computers and spacecraft. The social brain. Life was not just about individual survival. Homo habilis lived in small social groups, cooperating and sharing knowledge. The complexity of group life may have driven their growing brains, allowing them to communicate, negotiate, and remember. The roots of human society were beginning to take hold. Hunting and scavenging. Homo habilis was both hunter and scavenger. They followed predators to feed on leftovers. They learned which plants were safe. They observed patterns in animal behavior. Every success, every failure shaped their brains. Every challenge taught innovation. The world was dangerous, but intelligence made danger manageable. Hunting and fire, a foreshadowing. Though Homo habilis may not have tamed fire, they were the first to shape the raw materials of the world. Stone, sticks, and bones became extensions of their will. And in these small acts, we glimpse the future of humanity. Tools, fire, culture, and eventually civilization. The long journey forward. As the climate shifted, forests gave way to grasslands. Homo habilis adapted. They moved, they explored, they survived. But the story of humanity was far from complete. Bigger brains, sharper tools, longer journeys. These were yet to come. The next great step would take us from Homo habilis to Homo erectus, a species that would leave Africa, spread across continents, and harness fire itself. The first sparks of intelligence. Homo habilis reminds us of a simple truth. Human evolution is a story of curiosity, adaptation, and innovation. From these early hands arose the tools that would shape our destiny. The spark of intelligence had been lit, and the journey of humankind had only just begun. The first global travelers. Around 2 million years ago, a new species appeared on the stage of evolution. Homo erectus, upright man. Bigger, stronger, and far more intelligent than its predecessors, Homo erectus was not content to remain in one place. For the first time, humans would leave their homeland, venturing into unknown lands, changing the planet and themselves forever. The body of Homo erectus. Homo erectus was a remarkable physical specimen. Standing as tall as modern humans, with long legs built for walking long distances, and a skull capable of supporting a significantly larger brain than Homo habilis, roughly 900 to 1,100 cubic centimeters. These traits were not just for survival. They were the tools of exploration, enabling a species to walk farther, carry more, and think more. The fire that changed everything. One of the most profound transformations in human history came with fire. Homo erectus did not simply stumble upon it, they learned to control it. Fire brought warmth to cold nights, protection from predators, and the ability to cook food. Cooking transformed survival itself. Food became easier to digest, nutrients became more accessible, and the human brain, hungry for energy, had the fuel it needed to grow even larger. With fire, Homo erectus was no longer at the mercy of the wild. They were becoming masters of their environment. Tools refined. Homo erectus refined the tools of their ancestors. Stone axes, cleavers, and handheld implements were sharper, more precise, and more versatile. These tools allowed them to hunt larger animals, prepare hides, and even dig for underground tubers. For the first time, humans were not just surviving in nature, they were actively shaping it. Migration and expansion. Africa was no longer enough. Homo erectus embarked on the first known human migrations, leaving the cradle of humankind to explore Asia and Europe. Crossing rivers, forests, and mountains, they spread into landscapes never before encountered by humans. This migration was not a single journey. It was a gradual expansion over hundreds of thousands of years. Each step outward was a triumph of adaptation and resilience. Adaptation to new environments. With migration came challenges. New predators, harsh climates, different foods. Homo erectus adapted. They learned to make shelters, to organize hunts, to cooperate in complex social groups. Their ability to adapt was a hallmark of the human lineage, survival through intelligence, innovation, and teamwork. Communication and social life. While language had not yet evolved fully, Homo erectus likely used vocalizations, gestures, and shared knowledge to survive. Group cohesion was essential. Hunting large animals, maintaining fire, and caring for young all required coordination and memory. In these early social networks, the foundations of culture and cooperation began to emerge. The long road to modernity. Homo erectus endured for more than 1.5 million years, longer than any other human species. They tamed fire. They created tools. They migrated across continents. They adapted to ice ages and tropical heat alike. And yet, they were not the final step. The human journey would continue toward larger brains, sophisticated tools, art, and culture. Homo erectus paved the way for Homo sapiens, but the story was far from over. The spirit of exploration. Homo erectus teaches us a fundamental truth. Humanity is defined not just by where we come from, but by the courage to move forward, to explore, to adapt. Fire, migration, and ingenuity, these were the hallmarks of the first global travelers. Next, we'll introduce the Neanderthals and Denisovans, our closest cousins, and reveal the story of interbreeding, survival, and the emergence of modern Homo sapiens. Close encounters. As Homo erectus spread across the globe, other branches of humanity were beginning to emerge. In Europe and Western Asia, the Neanderthals appeared. Farther east, in Siberia and parts of Asia, the mysterious Denisovans carved out their existence. These were not distant cousins, they were close relatives, creatures who walked, hunted, and survived much like us. And one day they would meet Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, and forever change the story of humanity. The Neanderthals. The Neanderthals were adapted to cold, harsh climates. With robust bones, powerful muscles, and large brains, sometimes larger than modern humans, they were formidable survivors. They used sophisticated tools, hunted in coordinated groups, and cared for their sick and elderly. But Neanderthals were more than brute strength. They buried their dead, adorned themselves with pigments, and may have created art. They were human, just not quite the humans we are today. The Denisovans. Far to the east, in the remote caves of Siberia, lived a species we know only from fragments, the Denisovans. DNA preserved in tiny bones revealed a startling truth. Denisovans were close cousins of Neanderthals, and, remarkably, they interbred with the ancestors of modern humans. Through these encounters, our DNA carries echoes of these vanished relatives, whispers of ancient worlds that no longer exist. The first Homo sapiens. Meanwhile, in Africa, a new species was emerging, Homo sapiens, the humans we are today. With lighter skeletons, large complex brains, and the ability to imagine beyond the immediate, Homo sapiens were not just surviving, they were creating meaning. Around 300,000 years ago, our species began to walk the earth, carrying the legacy of millions of years of evolution, but also the potential to surpass it. Interbreeding and genetic legacy. The story of Homo sapiens is not one of isolation. When modern humans left Africa around 70,000 years ago, they encountered Neanderthals and Denisovans. They interbred. They exchanged genes. They carried fragments of these species into the future. Today, people outside Africa carry 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, and some populations in Asia carry traces of Denisovan ancestry. This is a powerful reminder. Humanity is a tapestry, woven from many threads, some of which are older than our own species. Culture, language, and symbols. Homo sapiens were different not only in body and brain but in mind. We began to create symbols, art, and ritual. Cave paintings, beads, and carved figurines reveal a species capable of imagination and abstract thought. Language, though invisible to us, was taking shape. It allowed humans to share knowledge, cooperate in larger groups, and plan for the future. These innovations were the foundation of culture. Survival and extinction. As Homo sapiens spread across the globe, some relatives disappeared. Neanderthals vanished around 40,000 years ago. Denisovans followed, leaving behind only fragments of bones and DNA. But their legacy lived on within us. Their genes influence our immunity, our skin, even our adaptation to high altitudes. Through survival, extinction, and interbreeding, the modern human lineage solidified. The dawn of modern humans. By 30,000 years ago, Homo sapiens were the only human species left on Earth. We had mastered tools, fire, and cooperation. We painted, sculpted, and sang. We adapted to deserts, mountains, and icy tundras. We were no longer just survivors. We were creators, innovators, and storytellers. The stage was set for the next chapter of humanity. Agriculture, cities, and civilization. A species like no other. Neanderthals and Denisovans remind us that humanity is not a single line but a branching tree, full of experiments, adaptations, and connections. Homo sapiens carry their legacy, their genes, and perhaps a part of their spirit. The journey of humanity is far from over. From hunting and gathering to farming and cities, from fire to computers, our story continues. A story written in DNA, stone, and imagination. Next, we'll explore agriculture, civilization, and the modern human world, where the choices of our ancestors shape the lives we live today. The shifting world. For hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens lived as hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, following herds, and gathering plants. But around 12,000 years ago, a profound change began. In fertile river valleys, from the Tigris and Euphrates to the Nile, Indus, and Yellow River, humans discovered a new way to live. They planted seeds. They domesticated animals. They settled in one place. Agriculture had arrived, and with it, the dawn of civilization. The birth of agriculture. The transition from foraging to farming was not sudden. Early humans experimented with wild grains. They noticed which seeds grew best, which soils produced the most food. Over generations, they domesticated wheat, barley, rice, and maize, turning wild plants into reliable crops. Animals, too, were tamed. Dogs, goats, sheep, cattle, companions and sources of food and labor. This new way of life transformed human societies. No longer bound to constant movement, communities could settle, store surplus, and grow. The first villages. With agriculture came villages. Small clusters of mud brick houses appeared. People lived closer together than ever before, sharing food, work, and shelter. These early settlements required organization, cooperation, and innovation. Irrigation systems were built. Grain storage ensured survival through harsh seasons. Social hierarchies began to form. Human society was evolving not biologically but culturally. The emergence of civilization. Agriculture enabled cities. The first great civilizations arose along rivers. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China, humans built monumental structures, developed writing, and created laws. Civilization was a new layer of evolution, not genetic but cultural. It allowed knowledge to accumulate, ideas to spread, and societies to thrive on a scale never before seen. Humans were no longer just individuals surviving in the wild. They were builders, thinkers, and planners. Technology and innovation. With civilization came technology. Stone gave way to bronze and iron. The wheel revolutionized transport. Sailing vessels connected distant communities. Every innovation reshaped human life. Survival became easier, life became longer, and possibilities expanded. The human brain, honed by millions of years of evolution, now worked not just for survival, but for creation, invention, and imagination. Culture, art, and storytelling. Humans have always sought meaning. Art, music, and ritual flourished alongside agriculture. Stories were told around fires, then carved in stone, and eventually written on clay tablets and papyrus. Culture became a vehicle for knowledge, passing experience from one generation to the next, accelerating human progress beyond biology. Migration and global expansion. Even as cities rose, humans continued to explore and migrate. They adapted to deserts, jungles, mountains, and islands. Trade networks spanned thousands of miles, connecting distant peoples. Humans were no longer just observers of the world. They were shapers of it. Evolution in the modern age. Modern humans are the product of millions of years of evolution, biological, cultural, and technological. Our genes carry the legacy of Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and countless ancestors who walked the earth before us. But evolution did not stop. It continues, sometimes subtly, sometimes through the choices we make. Through medicine, technology, and culture. We are the living story of survival, innovation, and curiosity. The human odyssey. From walking upright in the African savanna, to taming fire, crafting tools, migrating across continents, and building civilizations. Humanity has always sought to understand and shape the world. Our story is one of adaptation, resilience, and imagination. Yet it is still being written. We are not merely descendants of the past, we are authors of the future. Next, we'll explore our modern evolution, the interplay of biology and culture, and the challenges humanity faces in the 21st century. The new age of humanity. From fire and stone to bronze and iron. From agriculture and cities to airplanes, computers, and space travel. Humanity has always been defined by innovation and adaptation. But in the last few centuries, the pace of change has accelerated like never before. We are entering a new stage of evolution, a stage where biology and culture, genetics and technology intertwine. Evolution continues. Evolution is not a story frozen in time. Even today, humans are still evolving. Our genes reflect adaptations to diet, disease, altitude, and climate. Populations exposed to malaria developed resistance. High-altitude communities evolved larger lungs and more efficient oxygen use. Our immune systems carry the legacy of ancient encounters with Neanderthals and Denisovans. Biology and environment continue to shape who we are, even in a world dominated by cities and technology. Culture as evolution. Culture is a powerful form of evolution. Unlike genes, culture passes knowledge horizontally, between peers, across communities, and across continents. It allows humans to adapt faster than biology alone. Language, education, medicine, and technology are all part of this cultural evolution. We have created systems that preserve information, accelerate learning, and expand human potential. Humans now evolve as much through ideas as through DNA. Technology and the human future. In the 21st century, technology is becoming an extension of evolution itself. We manipulate our environment, our bodies, and even our genes. CRISPR and gene editing allow us to correct inherited diseases. Artificial intelligence enhances memory, calculation, and decision-making. Exploration of space challenges us to survive in worlds beyond Earth. We are shaping ourselves consciously and deliberately, a new frontier of evolution. Globalization and human diversity. Humans are now more connected than ever before. Migration, trade, and communication have brought together cultures and genes from across the planet. Interconnected populations allow gene flow, spreading traits and creating new combinations. Diversity has always been humanity's strength. From Neanderthals to modern humans, adaptation thrives in variety. Challenges to human survival. Yet, evolution is not without obstacles. Human activity has transformed the planet, sometimes faster than our biology can adapt. Climate change, habitat destruction, pandemics, and resource scarcity are modern challenges. Survival now depends not only on genes or tools, but on intelligence, cooperation, and foresight. Evolution has taught us resilience. Now it demands responsibility. The human story continues. From the first upright steps in African savannas, to the first tools, fire, cities, and civilizations, humans have always been innovators, explorers, and storytellers. Our evolution is no longer just about surviving the wild. It is about shaping our world, our minds, and our future. We are part of a story millions of years in the making, and yet we are still writing it, every day. Reflection and legacy. Human evolution is a journey of curiosity, courage, and creativity. It is a testament to the power of life to adapt, survive, and flourish. It is a story of countless generations, each contributing to the being we are today. And though the future is uncertain, one thing remains clear. We are the product of millions of years of change, and the authors of the next chapter in the extraordinary story of life on Earth. The long journey. Humanity's story spans millions of years. It begins with tiny cells floating in ancient oceans, moves through upright apes on African savannas, and stretches across the globe with explorers, thinkers, and innovators. We are the culmination of countless adaptations, challenges, and triumphs. And yet, we are only a moment in the vastness of time. The threads of evolution. Our journey is a tapestry woven from many threads. Biology shaping our bodies and brains over millions of years. Culture passing knowledge and ideas through generations. Technology giving us power to reshape the world around us. From Australopithecus to Homo sapiens, from hand axes to artificial intelligence, each thread has contributed to the human story. We are not the end of evolution, we are a chapter in a story that continues. Connections with our relatives. We did not evolve alone. Neanderthals, Denisovans, and countless other hominins shaped our biology, our genetics, and even our capacity to survive. Through interbreeding, cooperation, and competition, we inherited a legacy written in DNA, a reminder that humanity is a shared story, not a solitary one. Humanity and the planet. For the first time in history, humans hold the power to transform the planet itself. Our choices, how we live, how we use resources, how we interact with nature, will determine not just our future, but the future of countless other species. Evolution gave us brains capable of imagination, foresight, and creativity. It is now up to us to use these gifts responsibly. The future of evolution. The next steps in human evolution may not be guided solely by nature. We are designing our own future through technology, medicine, and innovation. Genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and space colonization represent a new frontier, a world where human evolution may accelerate at unprecedented speed. And yet, our essence remains the same: curious, adaptable, and creative. Reflection on the human odyssey. From the first spark of life to the rise of civilizations, from walking upright to shaping fire, tools, and cities, the story of humanity is a story of resilience, ingenuity, and wonder. We are a product of the past, a participant in the present, and the author of the future. The human journey is far from over. A cosmic perspective. If the history of the universe is a single year, humans appear in the final moments of December 31st. But in that blink, we have walked continents, tamed fire, created civilizations, and reached for the stars. The story of humanity is proof that life is extraordinary, and evolution is a journey without end. And now, as we look to the future, we carry with us the lessons of millions of years, and the responsibility to continue the story with courage, curiosity, and imagination.